Hello friends, as part of this video, we will go through the overview of our Todo full stack application. This application is developed on Spring Boot 3 and Angular 16. Spring Boot 3 dependencies are Spring Data JPA to persist the data to MySQL database using Java Persistent API, MySQL driver to connect to the MySQL database, REST repositories that help to exposing Spring Data repositories over via Spring Data REST, and Lombok used to create the getter and setter automatically so that we need not to write the boilerplate code again and again. And Angular using Angular material and bootstrap to build our simple UI. Let's see in practical the functionality of our Todo app. User can create the task with description of that task. User can modify the task and description. User can only update the status by clicking on this checkbox. User can delete the task. So along with that you can see the pagination also. So this pagination will have more number if the record space size will increase. So in current page we allow to have 10 records. So if you want to, if let's say we have 11 record, so we can see this 2 number here and we can paginate between the records. And when we perform any database operation or any call, we can see this Snackbar from Angular material. So these are the functionality of our app. We'll meet you in the next video on first step to set up the database. In this video session, we will be starting setup on MySQL database. So you should have MySQL and MySQL Workbench installed in your machine, and you can refer all the documentation and step-by-step guide to develop front-end and back-end application from here. This is my web application where I have noted down all the steps one by one. Let me quickly tell you how you can access this documentation so it will be easy for you to follow. Go to way2programming.com. In the home screen you can see here left navigation bar. So in this left navigation bar we have many technologies name. Here we can select full stack. It will redirect us to all the content related to full stack applications. So currently you can see Todo full stack Angular and Java application at first heading, but it might be possible when you will access this link, you have to see this heading first. So once you open this drop down, here is the step-by-step guide to follow this course. As part of the first step, we will be creating the user into our MySQL database, and we will be creating schema, and then inside that schema we will be creating the table. So if you will ask why we are creating the user in schema, it's totally optional. If you want to create the table as part of another schema and user, it is up to you, but I will create from the beginning so that it will be separated based on the application. Let's start the practical with database. So first let's open the MySQL Workbench. Since I have already opened here, so let me quickly close and reopen. So first we need to connect to the root user. Once we connected to the root user, we can open one new query tab. Here we can write our SQL query. So first we need to see what is the first step. Create user is the first step. So let me copy these 3 commands. So first we are creating user with this name and providing the privileges, and lastly we are providing the password. to run these query, we need to click on this icon. Once we click, you can see all the query is successfully executed. Now let's move to the create schema part. Let's copy schema queries, remove previous one, paste again. So we are dropping schema if it already exists, creating and using, and then click on this icon. It will execute the query. Successfully executed. Now let's create the table. Copy the table, remove previous query, paste again, and run the query. So now our table is also got created. So now let's check whether our user got created or whether our schema got created or not. So to see the user, we have to click on the user and privileges section. We can see our Todo app user is created, and similarly for schema we have to refresh here. Todo app schema also got created. Let's check the table. Todo table is also got created, but currently when we select from this table, it will show nothing is there. So this data we will be inserting from our UI application. In the last video we have completed the database setup, and in this video we will be creating Spring Boot RESTful web service project from the start.spring.io. So let's jump into the second step. So go to start.spring.io. It is a Spring initializer, and we need to select language Java, build tool Maven. It should be default. So maybe after 1 year it may be the latest version, latest stable version, so we need not to change anything here. So provide the group name. Now let's add the dependency. The first dependency would be Spring Data JPA. So as here you can see, persist, this dependency helps persist data in SQL store with Java Persistence API using Spring Data and Hibernate. So basically it will interact with the database using Hibernate and Java Persistence API. Let's add MySQL driver to connect to the database, MySQL database, and the REST repositories. So this will expose the Spring Data repository over REST via Spring Data REST. So it will expose the REST endpoint. And the last dependency is Lombok. It will help us to generate the boilerplate code like getter and setter for our application. Generate the project. It is generating, so we can save anywhere. Okay. Once application is downloaded successfully, we have to extract this project. So we can see here in the full stack tutorials it is extracted, but it is extracted inside Todo and again Todo folder. So I will cut and paste this here, and now we can see the one folder only, and pom.xml resides here. So we have to import this to our editor. So let's close this and open new project. So our Todo application is imported to our editor. Now it will download the dependency. In the last session, we have successfully imported the project into the editor, and editor also downloaded the dependency automatically. So in this video, we are going to update the application property file, and we will be running this application. So this is our application.property file, and let's see the third step, update application property. So these are the basic configuration related to the database. So database username, password, schema name, and driver name, and related property. And along with that we have base path for our API/API. So our endpoint will start from our REST endpoint will start from API. So let's copy and paste into our application.property file. Now we can run this project. So we can see here successfully project is started, and it is started on port 8080. In the last session we have updated application.properties into our project. In this video we are going to create the entity, to do entity in our application. So create the package config and class to do. So this is our entity class. So we have to say entity from Jakarta. It will import. Previously it was from JavaX. Now it is Jakarta. Entity table. So our table name is to do. So let us check the column name on our database create table. So the first is ID, then we have name, then we have description, then we have completed. It's a true and false value, so we have to say boolean completed. Date created, so date from the java.util, and underscore thing we have to convert in camel case format. So date create, date last updated. So first this is our ID, and generated value strategy is generation type identity, and database column name is ID. Let us copy this column name multiple times. So last updated, in the database it will get converted into underscore format and lowercase. Date updated underscore and C completed description. Okay, so now our Pojo class almost ready, but we haven't created at getter and setter. So for that we will be using Lombok dependencies, getter and setter. So now almost entity class is ready. In the last video we have successfully created our to do entity class, and in this video we are going to move forward on the next task, that is develop to do JPA repository class. So create another package, repositories, and in this repository package we have to create this to do repository. So create todo repository interface, todo repository, and this todo repository going to extend JPA repository. So this will by default provide us all the card operation with paging sorting feature, and our entity class is todo, type ID type is integer. So this is our ID type, and we can see our todo ID type is int. So our all this repository class is ready now. Let us run the project. Okay, there is actually one error. Column ID is duplicated in mapping for entity. Okay, so let's check in our entity class. Okay, yeah, this ID is duplicated 2 times, so I have to provide here name. Column name is should be name, and rerun. Okay, this time it is successfully running on port 8080. So let us check. Yeah, so we can see our Todo API having default feature page sort and all, and if we will access Todo's endpoint, we can see all the Todos here. Currently there is no data, so it is displaying empty array. The last session we have successfully created the Todo repository, and we were able to see some endpoint like Todo with pagination. Currently we can see here default pagination and page size, and these are the default feature is available, but still we cannot see all the point like Swagger. So we are going to, in this video we are going to do another step, that is configure Swagger and seeing all the endpoints. Okay, we will not try from postman, just we will see because these will work fine. Okay, so how to set up this Swagger first? So here we can go to this springdog.org application. So this is Open API, Spring.Dog Open API version 2.10. Okay, and here they have provided the dependency for Spring Boot 3, and previous version dependency I think we have to go here for Spring Boot 2 and 1. So we are using Spring Boot 3, so this dependency is enough. Let's copy, or else you can copy from here also. Copy and update in our pom.xml. Refresh Maven dependency. Okay, so all operations are completed, dependency is downloaded. Now rerun our application. We need not to do any extra configuration. By default we can see all the endpoints of the Swagger. Okay, so application is started now, and to see the endpoint we need to go to localhost 8080 swagger UI index.html. Yeah, so we can see default profile controller, and from the Todo repository these many endpoints are available by default. So but if you will see in this Todo call, let me try this get call here, try it out. Okay, so these are the query param, it is not mandatory, so we can run, and we can see Todos are coming currently with empty array, but you can also see by default API is having pagination feature. So currently default size is 60, so default size is 20. We cannot get, if we need all the record we cannot get. So in the next video we are going to add one extra method, that is find all method, so that we can fetch all the record without pagination. In the last video we have launched all the endpoint in the Swagger UI, or we can say we could able to see all the endpoints in the Swagger UI. Now in this video we are going to create to do, means post to do and get to do, and see the problem and will work on to fix those problem. So let's jump into the postman. So this is my post API for the create to do. So let's this is the object, name, description completed, send, and we can see the returned object from the post API with status 2 node 1 created. Now if you will see here, one is thing is ID is missing, another is links is coming extra. Similarly, when we call the get call in the to do's array, we are not getting ID and we are extra getting links, which is not required for our front-end application. So this is hate OAS functionality, and ID is by default is not exposed by the REST to REST repository. So we are going to fix those two problems. In the last video we could able to post the to do through the postman and we were able to get the to do, but we found two issues. One is ID is not exposing through this to do get call, and underscore link is extra. So in this video we are going to remove underscore link through our processor, entity processor class we will going to create, and it implements the representational model processor, and it is a type of entity model, and entity model has, we have to provide our entity type. So and it has the overridden method, that is process, and we have to return here model dot get content, means we need to return to do model only get content. Once we call this get content method, it will remove underscore link from the to do. So let's jump into the editor, and if you will see the previously we created this to do entity inside the config, so we should actually create this into the entity package. So let me move it. Refactor. Config is empty now, so let's create our first class, my entity processor, and it implements representational model processor, and it require the type as entity model, and entity model require the type of our entity. Now we have to override the method process, and here we need to return entity model of model. So we will take our entity model, that is to do, and get content. So it will return the only content, and underscore link will be removed. So here we have to say @configuration, so that dependency of this class will be managed by the Spring Boot. Let's stop and restart. So now our application is running. Let us see get call. Yeah, we can see underscore link is removed. Only we are getting to do, but still we have one more problem, that is ID. So we have to expose the ID to perform our CAD operation through the front end. In the last video we were able to remove the underscore link from the to do's object, or we can say from the to do object. In this video we will be working to expose the ID, so that we can perform the CAD operation using ID. So to do that, we have to create my data rest config, and it implement repository rest configurer class. And here we have to auto wire the repositories, and it means we got now all the repository, but currently we have only to do repository, and here we can apply the iterator, and for each remaining it will give the repository instance here. Once we get the instance, we have to take this repository rest configuration object, and we have to expose id for method we have to call and provide the repository. So once we call this, it will start exposing the id. So let's move to our editor, create one more class, my rest. We can give any, but let me follow the same, my data rest config. So my data rest config, it implements repository rest configure, and configure repository rest configuration is the overridden method. Let's remove this line and auto wire the repository, auto wired. We are going to wire repositories. Okay, so now we have the repository object. Let us apply iterator, and for each remaining take the reference, and okay, and here we have to say config dot expose id for our repository. Okay, something is not good. So I am a JavaScript developer, so I have a habit to use equal to and greater for lambda. So we have to change this to single, and then it will work fine. Okay, so let's save and rerun. But currently here is one problem. We have to say configuration so that it will be managed by our Spring Boot underlying container. Let us remove, stop and rerun. Okay, our application is running now. Let's get call again, and we could able to see the ID. Last video we have successfully able to expose all the endpoint in the Swagger UI and able to configure the Swagger. In this video we are going to add one extra method. So we want to get all the record from one call, that is find all. So this is the one, this we have to update in todo repository. So let's go to todo repository. Oh, method name is find all, and return value is list of todo list from Java util. Okay, and here we have to write the query select star from todo. Let us type from in capital, from also in capital, and here we can say native query true. That's all. Let's rerun our application. Yeah, so this is application is working fine. Let's see if this endpoint is added here into Swagger or not. Yeah, we can see here this todo search controller is added as additionally, and this is our find all rest endpoint location. And if we try it out, try execute, We can see all the todos without page object. It means there is no pagination. So all good. So with this, our backend development is almost completed. It is very simple backend development for our application. And in the next video we will be starting our front end development. In the last video we have successfully completed our backend development, and we tried some of the endpoint through the postman, and we have seen all the endpoint into the Swagger UI. Now as part of this video we are starting our front-end development, and this is the first task in front-end development. So first of all we have to install Angular CLI globally. So to install Angular CLI globally, so since you can see this command is started with npm, it means we are using node package manager to install the Angular CLI. So first of all you should have Node.js installed in your machine. You can install latest version of Node.js. After that you have to give this command. I am already having this version, latest version installed in my machine, so I will quickly see the ng version. So here it is 16.16. This is the latest version, so I am not going to perform this task. Now I am going to create another this task. It create the Angular project. So ng new to do full stack. It will take some time. So I have selected Angular routing, and default CSS style is CSS. We can also choose SCSS, so but currently we are not focusing on SCSS, so CSS is fine. It will take around 5 minutes or 2 minutes based on your network speed. So now we can see the project is created successfully, and node modules also installed. We need to redirect to that folder cd to do full stack. So once we redirect to this folder, our project folder, we need to open this project into the editor. Okay, so let us run this project. So project is started on port 4200. Yes, we are able to successfully launch our local host with port 4200. In the last video we have completed the setup of proxy, and we could see the log related to proxy using Winston. In this video we are going to install Angular material. So we have to give this command. I will stop this local server, clean, and ng-add Angular material. So current version for my Angular is Angular 16. So we can see the material is also having same version, and let's choose everything default. Indigo pink, fine. Set up a global Angular material, typography, fine. Include and enable animation, enter. So all the setup completed of Angular material. Let's see the changes. And so first changes we can see in the style. Here the indigo pink CSS theme updated in the style section. And this is our proxy setups, and here also the style is updated, and similarly some CLI analytics ID installed. So no need to worry about this. After that we can see two packages, Angular CDK and Angular material is installed. This is related to Angular material, and we have index.html changes. This is also installed by Angular material, and it is the CSS, and this is material icons, and this is related to the fonts family. and we can see a font Google API.com, style.css. This is the basic style required from the Angular material side, so they have updated for us. And lastly, Angular animation module. In the last video we have completed the setup of Angular material, and in this video we will be starting installing bootstrap. Let's quickly start. So this is the node mod npm command. Here we can install bootstrap using node package manager. So copy this line, stop the local server, clean the screen. Npm install -- save means as a dev dependency we want this bootstrap. So I am combining Angular material and bootstrap together because of just to make my template easy for the to do application development. You can choose whatever the UI you want. And in the style section we have to make sure our bootstrap is should have the first before the indigo pink material Angular material CSS. So this we have to make sure, otherwise our Angular material CSS will be overridden. So we want to give priority on the Angular material side. In the last video we have completed the setup of our bootstrap. In this video we will be setting up the basic template for our to do. So we will be following this link. So let's jump into our coding part. So if you will see here, I have removed all the boilerplate code provided by Angular and also removed from the TypeScript file. Now we will start from the first step. The first step we will be using these many modules, and this is the service for the Snackbar. So we will directly not start from here, rather than we will start from this command. So first we will have the container as a temp in our template. So this is bootstrap container. We will be having mat card, and it will be having the form, to do form. So paste within this container, enter. So here we can see some error related to mat card and then mat form field. So we will now going to take one by one. So first mat card, mat form field, and mat input module. So these three we need. Go to our app module, paste, and Alt Shift F to format the file. And then after if we see the template, we should not see the error. This error is now not there, but we have this function. So let's just create the basic function, empty function. So our template is happy now, and we can reload our application. We can see the form. Now we are using this button, so we need the button module also. So now our button is working fine. Let's go to the bootstrap table to view the to do section. So after mat card and paste it. Now we can see mat checkbox error, mat icon error. Go to home module section, and checkbox and icon module we need. So go to module again, paste it. Button module we already imported. So still, let's see, yeah, error is gone, but we have to save this file. So now we can see this to do view part. Now we need the pagination section. Copy this, paste, no error, so it will work since it is the bootstrap section only. Now we need when we click here, so we have to show the Snackbar. Since currently it is refreshing the page, so to fix this we have to say type button currently. We will fix this later. Now when we click, nothing will happen. So let's implement basic Snackbar. So we need two property, horizontal position and vertical position. So paste here. So horizontal position is end and vertical position is top. Means at this area it will display the notification or Snackbar, and copy this service. So it has some issue in the import, so we will copy this import from here. Now we are getting met Snackbar error, so we have to import Snackbar module. So now when we click on the submit, we can see this Snackbar or notification. So our setup of the to-do project is completed. In the previous video, we have completed the setup of our to-do application template with basic HTML and Angular modules. In this video, we will be starting our first programming task on UI. It is create to do. So to create to do, user need to fill the data in to do form, and on submit the form, UI application will call the Spring Boot backend post call to create the to do. Let's start the coding. First of all, we need to add the reactive forms module and HTTP client module at the imports section of the app module.ts file. Reactive forms module to create the reactive forms and HTTP client module to call the HTTP API. After adding required modules, we need to generate or create the HTTP service file or to-do model file. HTTP service file will have the logic to call the post API, and to-do model will have the structure same as backend response for to-do. So now we have service and to-do model file in place, and in the screen we can see backend response of all to-dos, where one object of to-do contains the fields ID, name, description, completed, date created, last updated, and we also require the same fields in our model. So now let's start updating our model file. Now let's update the HTTP service file. So in this HTTP service file, this is our endpoint backend service call, and we know our backend service is running on port 8080, but you can see like I'm not calling port 8080 from our front end code. So it means whenever this we will call the post call, it will take our front end port 4200, but we have already set up proxy in the previous video. So what will happen, it will automatically redirect our call to port 8080, and we are taking one to do object from our forum, from this UI. When we click submit, it will come in this service file, and we are sending this object to the service. Now our service is ready to take the HTTP calls, but still we need to work on our UI form, or we can say our reactive forum, to call the API. So I will start coding, but if you feel stuck anywhere, you come to this application b2programming.com, and here is the full stack link is there. So it will redirect automatically currently to the Todo full stack application, but you have to see in the future heading and then come to the step create Todo, and here we have all the steps one by one. So let's start coding. As of now, we have created to do forum. It is a type of form group, and we are taking the help of form builder class. It is providing us the ability to create the reactive forum using this group function. And here we have four attribute: ID, name, description, completed. But from the UI, we need currently during creation only to do name and description. So if you will see, these two property we have binded into the UI, name and description, but by mistake we binded two times. So let's remove one, and then Alt Shift Tab to format the code. And this ID is not required during creation because it is maintained by the database with Spring Boot. And completed, we are manually making it false when we create the request or when we send the request. So by default we will consider it as a false, since it is the task. So we will consider when we create the task, so it is not completed by default. Okay, so next we will be starting submitting the forum. So when we click this submit, and we also remove this type from button to submit. So when we click, automatically this function will get called. So now let's starting handling the submit form. Before that, we need to remove this to do empty class, because we already have this interface in place. I think I have by mistake created this, so let's remove. and we also I think I by mistakenly imported also here. We need the interface from the model, not from this empty class. Now let's proceed on the remaining coding part. We have handled on submit function, and in this coding we are saying if any error from the forum, any validation error from the forum, so return from here, do nothing. So currently we can see here no validation present, but we have to make one field as a required field, that is name field. We'll do that in further video. And we are taking the value of the form, creating another object, and then creating our to do request. And in the to do request we can see we don't have all the properties, only we have name, description, completed. So that, and we also changed our interface with some property with question mark, means these are the optional property for us during the creation, so that we won't get the compilation error. If we will have without question mark, it means whenever we will create the object with this type, we always need to provide that attribute. So, and then finally we are having we have injected our http service to call the http create to do function that we created earlier. Let's try and see if our call is going to the backend service. Yeah, our call is going fine. We can see headers. We can still see we are calling our SAM port where our front-end application is running, but in the backend it called the port 8080 through the proxy setup, and it is our payload from the our request. And we can see completed is going with false. This is the data coming from our forum, and then we got in the return back response. In the next video we will be working on the get to do task. In the previous video we have completed the create to do task, and in this video we will be working on get to do task. But before that we need to add the validation on name field. We consider that name field is mandatory and to do cannot create it without this data. Now we can see our validation is working fine and required field error message is displaying to the user. Now let's start working on get to do task. So first we need to create the get to do method in service file, and then this service to do method will call the http get call. Now our http service file is ready to call the get call. So let's quickly see the changes that we did. So we created get to do method. It will call the HTTP client with get call, and in returns we will get to do response. So this is the type. So get to do response is the type, and it contains embedded, and inside the embedded object we will get that all the to dos. So if you will see this HTTP call at port 8080, we can see we are getting underscore embedded, and then we are getting the to dos. So similar structure we will get, and once we get that, we are converting this format in. So we are just taking the to dos and returning from this map operator of RxJS. So we can see here we are returning observable of to dos. Now the next task, we need to create the get to do method in app component.ts file, and this component get to do method will call the service get to do method to get all the to dos, and after getting all to dos it will assign data to local variable of the component. And once we assign the data to local variable, we will iterate the local variable to display all the to do in UI. So as part of second step, we have created the to do method in the component, and then we are calling the service to get the to dos. Once we get the to do, we are assigning to the local variable, and then we are iterating this local variable in the UI. So this is our for loop, and then we are taking name and description and displaying in the UI. Now if we will go and see, still we can see like test and test previous, but previously it was the hard-coded data. Now we are getting from the database. If let's try to create one more to do. So test one submit. So we can see our post call submitted the data. Let's refresh currently. So we can see our another record is iterated in the UI. And as I said earlier, this data we are getting through the database, or we can also say that we are calling the get API, and get API this is our Spring Boot service that is calling the database or getting the data, and we are getting that data inside this underscore embedded key, then to dos, and this is our data. And we also observed one issue. Whenever we created this test one, immediately it is not reflected in the UI. So let's fix the issue. Actually, whenever we are creating the to do, immediately we have to call the get to do method again. So let's call and see if this is working. Yeah, whenever we created, immediately we called get call. Here we can see get call. This is the post call. So after post we call the get. Either we can get the response from this preview and map to this object, or else we can just call the API. But here is one issue. This is subscribe, and this is all this method is also having another subscribe. So this is actually not good practice, calling subscribe into another subscribe. In the previous video we have added the get to dos feature, and in this video we will be working on delete to do feature. So our first task is we need to create the delete to do method in http.service.ts file. This delete to do method, it is a user defined function. It's up to the developer. We can give any other name also. So this delete to do method will call the http delete call, and this is our URL. So far actually we were calling, if you will see HTTP service file, we were calling the API slash to do to get all the to dos and to post the one to do. So this is the operation related to the one to do, since we need to provide the ID of that particular to do. So whatever the URL we were calling for get to do and post to do, simply we need to append the ID at the end of the URL. Let's write the code. Now the second task is we have to create the delete to do method in app component.ts file, or else you can give any other name instead of delete to do. This delete to do method will call the service delete to do method. So this component delete to do method will call our service delete to do method, and this delete to do method will get the ID from the template. Let's write the code. And now the last task is we need to call the component delete to do method from the template. Let's write the code. Let's quickly see the changes that we did so far. In the first step, we have created the delete to do method in the service file. This delete to do method is taking ID as a number, and then we are calling the delete API. We have just added in the get to dos and post to do API slash ID. So we have to just add the ID, and then we are calling this API in the delete call. In return we will get the deleted to do, so that we are returning from here. And then after that, in the component.ts file, we have created the same method, delete to do method. It will have the ID as a number, as a parameter. So this delete to do method we will be calling from the HTML file, and this delete to do method will be calling our service delete to do method, and we are taking the parameter ID from HTML, binding to the TypeScript file, and then finally we are giving it to the service file. Now service will call the delete API, and then in return we will get the deleted to do. So this delete to do method will return the all the to dos that are available in the database. Let's validate the delete functionality in the browser. Refresh the application. We call the get to do, got all the to dos in the UI. Let's click on the delete icon. Now we can see in the browser we call the delete API with the particular ID, and we got the successful response, and in the UI also record deleted. Just after deleting, we again call the get API and displayed the available record in the UI. In the previous video, we have added the delete functionality to our application. And in this video, we will be working on update functionality. So there are total 4 steps to update the to do. Let's quickly start from the first task. So our first task is we need to create the update to do method in http.service file, And update to do method is a user defined function, so we can take any name, whatever the name is suitable for us. And this update to do method will be calling the http update call, and then it will send the new updated to do object. So this updated to do method will send the new updated to do object to this service, and then service will send to the database. And then finally it will receive the new updated to do method from the component. So let's define this function in the http service file. Let's write the code. So now we have defined the function in service for update to do. This will receive the updated to do object from the component, and then it will send the updated to do to the service. And here is the URL. It is also similar to the delete call. In the delete call we have to pass the ID. Similarly in the update call also we need to pass the ID, and this ID we will get inside the to do object. So our second task is create update to do method in app.component.ts file, and this update to do method will have the functionality like it will call the updated to do method of the service. So we will calling from component to this service. We have already defined this function. It will get the updated to do object from the to do form. So let's define this function. Let's write the code. Now we have defined the function in our component.ts file, and this function is accepting or taking the updated to do object and sending to the service. And once we get the successful response from the service, we are calling this get to do function. So this is actually get to do's function. We are not getting one to do, we are getting multiple to do. So let's change this function name to do's. And in the service also. Okay, so we call get to do's method to get all the to do's, and then we are resetting the form. Now the next task is we need to create the handle edit method in app component.ts file. So what this handle edit method will do, so this function will get called from the edit icon click. So when we click on the edit icon, then this function will get called, and it will populate the existing data to the form so that user can modify. So when we click on this icon, it will populate this raw data to this form so that user can modify the values, and it will change the submit button text to update. So currently actually it is submit means currently it is handling the create functionality only, but when user will click on this edit icon, we want to show this as a update. Let's write the code. So we have defined the handle edit function. This handle edit function expecting to do object as a parameter. So it means when we click on this handle on this edit icon, it will send this to do object to this function, and once we get this to do object, here we are setting this value to our form. And before that we have created one variable. It will useful to check whether handle whether edit function edit mode is enabled or not. Name is itself clear, and then we are deleting some extra property that is not required for our form, because if we will set extra properties and it is not exist in the form, then we will get the error. So we have deleted this, and now let's see if edit is working or not. Yes, we can see form is populated with this value. Let's click now. Here we can see value got updated, and also the text is got changed here, updated. Now our last task is handle on submit method. Currently this method is having only the logic to create the to do. So whenever edit mode is enabled, we should call the update to do function instead of current functionality. So let's jump into this function, and whenever our edit mode is enabled, then don't call this code, else call create functionality. So in update mode, in edit mode, we should call the update form, and we should send the form value, or else we can take this out here and send this once form value. Let's test our functionality. So test 123 123 update. So we call the update function update API with put call, and got status 200, and UI also immediately reflected because we are calling the get call. In the previous video we have added the update functionality to our application, and in this video we will be working on patch functionality. Let's quickly see the difference between patch and update. So patch HTTP call can update the one or more properties. Put HTTP call will update the all the properties. So since if you will see the heading here, patch to do, and here we are saying update completed property. So in the UI we have this checkbox, and it is actually our completed status. So let's say whenever this task is completed, we can click on this checkbox and say this task is completed, and whenever we launch our application, it should return the our status of the completed. So our first task is we need to create the patch to do status method inside http.service.ts file. This http patch method will call the http patch call and then send the specific properties. So to call this API, we need the same URL as delete to do and update to do. So we need to append the ID at the URL, and then it will also require the updated value of the completed property. So let's say whenever we are clicking and unchecking again, so we have to first send the true value, and then we have to send the false value. Let's define the function. Let's write the code. So our first task is completed. We have added the patch to do status method inside service file. It is taking ID and completed status, and then we have the patch URL. We just append the ID similar like delete to do and update to do, and then we are calling the patch call and sending the completed property value either true or false. Now let's see our second task. So our second task is create the patch to do status method inside the component ts app component ts file. It will call the service patch to do method. So now we will call this service patch to do method just now we define, and then it will get the updated value of the completed property from the HTML along with ID. So our HTML will send the ID and completed property status to this component function, and then component function will be sent to our service function. And our last task on this step 2 is on successful response call the get to dos method to get all the to dos in UI. Let's write the code. Now our second task is completed. We have defined the function patch to do status, and this function getting ID, or we can say having the parameter as ID and completed status, and then same parameter we are sending to our service file. Once we get the response from service, we are again calling the get to dos method to get the updated to dos. Now our third task is we need to update the app component.html file. Here the first task is add ng model with one-way data binding to checkbox. So we can refer our blog, and here we have this patch to do step 21. So if you will see in this app update app component.html file, we have added ng model with one-way data binding. So what it will do, whenever we iterate to dos, it will come our completed status, and then we will show that completed status value, or we can say we are updating our checkbox. So why this is needed, like let's say when you refresh the application, so we want to show the updated value of our checkbox whether it is completed or not. And second task in this add change method to call the component patch to do status method. So from this change function, whenever we will click on this checkbox, immediately we call this function patch to do status, and here we will pass the ID and the completed status. Let's write the code. Now our third task is completed. We have added ng model, and since this ng model from the forms module, so we also added forms module in our app module.ts file, and then this model ng model is binded to the property completed. It means whenever this to dos will iterate in the UI, maybe through the change detection or load time, so it will provide the updated value to this checkbox whether it is checked or unchecked. And we change this checkbox through the UI from this check uncheck. We are calling this change function patch to do status and sending id and completed to this function. And here we are having not operator. So let's say if task is not completed, so we want to send this as a true, because now we are saying it is completed. And if the task is completed, then we will send this as a false. So just we are changing the value using this not operator, and this is actually not a not operator. So let's see why we have added this exclamation mark sign into our to do id. So we know this id, actually this is the to do, and if you will see this function, and here we are expecting this id as a number, but we are iterating this to do from this to do, and this to do having type as to do. And if you will see type to do, and here we have id as a optional property. So HTML knows that, or we can say TypeScript knows that this property is not a mandatory property, so it may be null or undefined. So TypeScript compiler is complaining either you can change this number or undefined type, or else we can say if our id is never be undefined, so we can add this exclamation mark sign and say it is never be undefined or null. So what this is actually, so this is definite assignment assertion feature from TypeScript 2.7.2, and it makes our compiler happy and we will not get any error. Let's see in the browser whether our application is working fine or not. Let's open the network tab, click on the checkbox. We can see we call the patch method with id, and then we are getting the 200 status. It means when we refresh, we will see the updated status. In the previous video, we have completed the patch to do functionality for our application, and all the CRUD operation implementation is completed. Now we will be displaying the notification to the user when the to do is created successfully, or else updated successfully, or if it is deleted successfully. So this Snackbar we are going to implement. This Snackbar name is given by the Angular material, so we will be using this Snackbar from the Angular material. And this we have already defined the function open Snackbar when we worked on the template mockup for the project. So we already defined this function. Only the thing is we need to give here parameter message, and when we will create, so we will pass the message created, and when we will update, so we will pass the message updated. Similarly, we will pass the message delete. Now if you will see, we are calling this open Snackbar with message delete. This is the constant. So we have to create one file, client.data.ts file, or whatever the name you want to give. Let's write the code. Implementation for the Snackbar is completed. Let's see if it is working fine or not. Yes, we can see it, Snackbar is displaying fine, and after some second it will hide. So that setting also there in this function. After 2 seconds it will hide automatically. In the previous video, we have added the Snackbar functionality to our application, and we were successfully able to display the message to the user. Now our last task is we need to implement the pagination. So to implement the pagination, we need at least 20 to 30 record. In this step, I have created some mock data. We can copy from here, since if we will create from the UI, it will take lot of time. And so for the displaying purpose, created simple data with ID 123. So let's insert manually. Let's refresh the UI. Yes, it is displaying. So now we can see our data is displayed up to the 20 record, but we have inserted 25 record through this script. So the reason is, like, when we are calling get call, it is returning the page object, it is the pagination data. So it is providing the data as size of the page is 20, so that we are displaying 20 record here by default. Let's understand the page object from the API. So this page object containing the four property: size, total elements, total pages, and number. So size is we are providing in the query param. If we are not providing in the query param size, so by default it will return the 20 value to us. And after that we have total element. This total element is the current count of the record in the database. So we have 25 record in the database. Total pages will get calculated based on the provided value for the size. Let's say if you will say I want 5 records to be displayed in the UI, so based on that it will calculate the page. It will mean Spring Data will rest calculate the page and return the calculated value to us. If you will say here size, you want to display the page size is 10, so we want to display the 10 record per page. So how much value we will get here? We will get 3, because 10 record will be displayed in the first page, remaining 10 will be displayed in the second page, and 5 record will be displayed in the third page. So when you will call the first page, you have to pass page equal to 1, page equal to 0, because it is in page is indexed 0 based. So when you will query for page 0, it will return the page 1. Let's start the implementation. So the first step is we need to create the function inside service to call the API. So this is the function name, get todos with pagination. It's user defined, we can give any other name also. So it takes two parameter, page number and size, because our query params, if you will see after question mark we have page and size, two query param. So these query param we will get from the component page and size, and will bind it as a dynamic value to this API. Previously we were calling only todo API, and this todo API having /API /todos. Now we have added extra information with question mark. We are providing page and size as a query param, and we are calling the API. But previously, if you will see, we were mapping this response to the todos, and we were returning the todo. Now we want to use the page information in the component, so we are returning the get todo response type. And this get todo information type, we have added here page information also, and we created the page interface, so that when we use this information in the component, we should not have any type error. So let's start the implementation. So currently, if you will see, like, we have created the service function get todo with pagination. So previously we were calling this get todos function whenever our application is loaded, and whenever any record is deleted, updated, and patched, created. So whenever we did any CRUD operation, we were calling to get the new records, and on the page load also we were calling. Now we need to replace this all function with the pagination. So let's start the step 2 implementation. So in the step 2 we need to create the another function get to do with pagination. It will have the parameter page 0 default value is 0. It means whenever our application will get loaded first time, we want to display the first page, and whenever we will click on this number 1 2 3, we will call this API with the dynamic value. So you can see here we are sending, calling the service, sending page and size value. Size is the instance variable, and in returns we are getting the response. And then previously we were directly mapping this response to mapping because we were returning the only to do's. We can see in our HTTP call, we can see we are returning only the to do's, so that we are directly, as we were directly assigning. Now we have to go to embedded and then to do's, then we will get the to do. So let's start the implementation. So now you can see when we refresh the application, it is displaying only the 5 record because we are calling the API with page 0, means page 1 size is 5. We want to see the 5 record per page. So now to proceed further, we need to generate these 5 pages in the UI with this value. To generate the pages, we need to construct the array with 1 2 3 4 5, right? Because we want to display the 5 record. So how we will implement the steps 3 is, here we have this generate, we will create this interface or type generated page. It will have display value and value. So display value means in the UI we will display 1 2 3 4 5, but they will have the value -1. So let's say one page 1 value will be 0 and page 2 value will be 1. So similar concept function we have created here, generate all page, and we have to just pass the total pages value, and here we will iterate from index 0, and then we will construct the same logic whatever we discuss here, +1, display value having the +1 and the value is having the index based value. And then finally we are calling this function from the get to do with pagination function. So we are getting this total pages inside this page object. So now we have generated the pages, and here the display value is greater than 1 from the value. So let's start iterating this in UI. So let's see in the UI whether the pages are displaying or not after this for loop. So yeah, now we can see the pages are displaying 1 2 3, and when we click on the number 1, it should call the -1 value for the page. So we can see page is going with 0. If we click on the second, it should call with the page 1. So now our pagination is working fine. Only the few things are remaining. The one is when we click on the particular number, we want to make that as active number, active page number. So let's start that implementation. So for that we need to update this page value. So currently I think we are not using this page anywhere. Okay, so this is the parameter. Yeah, we are not using instance variable, so let's change the name page num, and this page number we need to update in the pagination section. So this dot page num equal to data dot page dot number, because it holds the current page number value. Now this page number we have to provide here as a class dot active, and when this page number equal to our temp value, so sorry, with this value, because this is the +1 value, and we have to compare this page number with the actual value. So let's see if it is working in the UI. Yeah, page 1 is active. When we click on the third, page third is active, and when we click on the fifth is active. Now let's work on the previous and next button. So before starting the previous and next button functionality, if you will see in the last step, we created the instance variable, and this instance variable page number we are assigning inside the get to do pagination service response, and always assigning the number. So this page number holding the last get call response means current active page number we will have in this page number. So this will help us to implement the previous and next button functionality. So for the previous button functionality we need to implement two things. When we click we will call the get to do with pagination function, and here this page number holding the current page number value, so we will say -1 and call the API, right? This function will call the API after -1 value, after doing the -1 value, and it will disable and we will disable this button whenever we are on the first page. 0 means whenever we are on the first page. And for the next button we will say call the pagination function with +1 value. Here we are making +1 value for the page number, and we are disabling the next button whenever we are on the last page, means page is indexed page value, so that's why we are minusing 1 from the length of the to-dos. So let's quickly implement this. With this our previous and next button functionality is implemented, but there is minor difference. In the slide we have here to-dos, but since we are using the variable name for the pages, generated pages, so we need to take that variable to check the length of this pagination array, right? Now let's see in the UI whether it is working or not. Let's refresh. Yeah, we can see whenever we are on the page 1, previous button is disabled, and whenever we are on the fifth button, next button is disabled, and when we are on the second page, both are enabled. When we click on the previous, again previous disabled now, and when we are on the third page, click on the next button is working fine. So now our pagination is working fine from the pagination section, but still we are calling the get to do without pagination when we are doing any operation like CURD operation. So let's say if you are updating this status saying that this is completed, we can see we are still displaying the 20 record because we are calling the API without pagination query params. So to fix this, we need to replace the function at all the place. We don't want this get to do function now, so let's replace with get to do with pagination. And we are already holding the current page value in page number variable. So let's say if you are on the fourth page, so whenever you will update any status or any record, that time you want to be on the fourth page, so that we had to call with the current page this pagination. Let's replace at all over the place. Create to do also needed, and let's delete this from the service to. And if you will now make this task completed, we can see now we are displaying only the 5 record, and if you will update from fourth page, you will be on the fourth page and it will get updated also. So now with this our pagination is task is completed. Now we have to do some improvement and bug fixes. So the first bug fixes is when we update the task. Let's say if you are update the user story to capital S and update, we are still displaying this as update. So the reason is we are not making resetting the variable false. So go to the update method, is edit mode should be false when we update the thing. So now if you will re-update user story to capital update, we can see immediately it is got changed to the created, and it is also got updated to capital S. So now the another improvement is we want to display this form fields like full width, and this button we want to shift little bit to the like some padding, some margin we want to give from the left. So to do that, we already have this class field, a custom field. Let's define the CSS for this. And once we refresh, it should be full width. And this create button we want to shift a little bit right. So here create the class, say margin equal to 2. So it will take margin from all the area. So now it is shifted little bit right. And after that we want to display this pagination section with some in the center with some paddings from all the side. And we are creating this class with display flags, and we will assign this box to the center, say justify content center. Let's refresh. Yeah, it is now in the center, and some padding there from all the sides. And if you will see here this table this checkbox in the center, but this text are at the top. So here we need to say align middle, so that everything will be in the middle. Now it is displaying in the middle. So when we click on the delete button, it is currently deleting without asking any confirmation from the user. So now let's implement the confirmation on delete. So go to the delete function, and paste this. Once user will select yes, then only this code will execute. Now delete code. So let's try to delete the last record, fifth record. So it is saying, are you sure you want to delete this record? If we say cancel, nothing will happen, and if we say okay, we can see the 5 record is deleted. With this, our full stack development for the Todo application is completed. And as a last step, I have updated the Git repository link. So here we have front end and back end code. We'll meet you in the next full stack application.